In this video, I'll be sitting down with Ken, who is the founder of Delugs. We have a fun, casual chat about what we think are some of the best watches released in 2023. It's not a perfect list, so don't take things too seriously. Grab a coffee, sit back, and enjoy. I think we'll just start off with number 5 for me. I think you pointed it out, but in a way it doesn't really qualify, but I would like to shove it in there anyways, which is the Christopher Ward Bel Canto. I think for me, it kind of feels like an mb&f, but at a much more accessible price in terms of like visual aspects. But I'm also a big fan of the complication itself. And I've heard one in person a few times. I do think it sounds pretty good. Originally, I wanted to put the 12 here because as a sports watch, to me, it's like something that I've considered buying multiple times myself. And seeing yours the other day, I think, wow, like just fantastic quality. But probably not the most innovative watch, since some people believe that it was inspired by another sports watch, which I can see. But my number 5 would probably be the Chris Ward Bel Canto.
My number 5 is actually the PRX 35mm mother of pearl. Let me explain.
Why you do this?
Because I feel like, so I don't know when they decided to come out with 35mm, but they started with the 40mm and then the 35 came out like 1 or 2 years after that. I think firstly it shows that Tissot listens to their customers, or at least bothers to have a line for people with smaller wrists. But I think with the MOP dial specifically, I think that's something that, like, I don't even know how they do it, but to have an MOP dial at that price point is quite crazy. And the MOP is not like just a normal MOP. I think they have their, I don't know what they call it, that square pattern on the dial as well.
Okay, I haven't seen this watch, so. Yeah.
So it's not a watch I will wear. I mean, the size is a bit smaller, but I know many ladies who have it. My wife has one. And you really get an MOP. It's not like a MOP-like. It is actually MOP. So to get it at a sub 1,000 Sing dollars price point,
So I feel like you don't see MOP too often.
Yep, exactly. So I think they've done a good job with that one.
Okay. Yeah, that's concerning. I think when you mentioned PRX, I was like, oh.
We're going all over.
I think it's only fair that you go for number 4 first rather than me always going first, I guess. So what's your number 4?
My number 4 is actually what I'm wearing, my Armin Strom
okay, fair enough.
Horomariobro edition.
But the complication and like the base watch itself without the customizations, when was that released?
This was quite a few years back.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know the exact year, but at least
so
it's been a while.
Right, okay, fine.
Because they did a pure resonance, then they did a mirrored false resonance with the 2 seconds hand.
Okay.
But the reason why I think this one is special is because to me, it symbolizes a few things. I think firstly, that an individual or like a content creator or just a collector has the ability to do runs of watches, right? Like they will do 10 pieces just because of this idea of this particular, what started off as a piece unique. So these days I think Instagram is such a big part of things, and you actually have quite a lot of influence that you can wield. I mean, only watch. The whole thing started off because of a series of Instagram questions and comments, but of course this was the other way. It's a more favorable way.
Yeah, more positive.
More positive. I think the brand listened to what collectors really want and did things that made me made me really like the watch, right? Like removing that lip makes it a much more wearable watch. And as a brand owner, I can understand why you would be hesitant to do that, because that is almost like a signature look of your brand. Like almost all your watches have this ginormous lip. So for a collector to ask you to remove that, and for the brand to listen to it, I think that is quite significant.
Yeah, I mean, I do think there are collectors out there who've like collaborated with maybe some independents. Obviously, like Sartori Biard has done a few, but that is definitely on a very different level compared to this, rather than just like changing dials or something. This is like actual material differences compared to the original or like the default sort of thing. Yeah,
I think the two changes were the removing of the lip and removing of the seconds dial, which are, I wouldn't say is quite a significant shift in the entire look and feel of the watch. Yeah.
Yeah, like looking at it from my point of view, it's like very symmetrical, basically.
Yeah, correct. From the horizontal axis, yeah.
All right.
All right, what's your number 4?
Just very different, I guess. But probably recency bias, but for some reason I felt very compelled to at least like have one full like integrated bracelet sports watch, since I think like many people pay attention to that. And for me it's the Chopard XPS, the Salmon dial. I saw one in person recently, and I believe that maybe at the 30K price range, it might be one of the best, or for me personally, if I had 30K to spend on a steel sports watch, that's what I'd buy. The movement is a micro rotor movement, I think from LUC. It's basically like Patek standard, not obviously independent level of finishing, but it's solid. Dial-wise, I'm quite a fan of, I guess, Chopard's like Eagle Eye sort of dial for the Alpine Eagle. I've heard people make very funny like comparisons, saying that it looks like a butthole or something, but I'll probably edit that out of the video. But I do think the dial is nice. The shade of salmon is very good, but most importantly,
this the one?
It's 41 mm, I believe, but it wears so small. It wears almost like a 39, and it has screw down, it has 100-meter water resistance. For me, it has basically everything that I would expect of a sports watch. I think one of the best and maybe slightly underrated releases because of the brand.
How's the bracelet?
Bracelet is very good, very comfortable. I think maybe what stood out for me is that the design doesn't feel like a Genta knockoff. I guess you can love it or hate it, but personally, I'm fine with the design. I think the finishing is pretty good. Maybe not quite like Royal Oak level, but around like an overseas sort of level. So it's like the brushed finish on the main links and like faceting on the insides. But quality-wise, yeah, very good. Maybe no strap system, but other than that, to me, I don't really value like having interchangeable straps too much nowadays. And the reason why I say that is because I feel oftentimes now I've gotten to the stage where it's just like I find one really good strap combo, like with this, for example, like I think the white just works so well.
Yeah.
I'm not going to change it.
I
don't want to keep like switching between random things or trying out new things. Like it's a bit just tiring. So I think this, like, it looks fantastic with the bracelet. I wouldn't really want to have it on a strap, but yeah, that's that. Then I guess I'll go number 3.
Number 3, yes.
It's kind of unfair because it's so much more expensive than every watch mentioned so far, which is the F.P.Journe. I'm gonna screw up the pronunciation, but the Francis Ford Coppola. So from my understanding, I think the prototype was first released at Only Watch 2 years ago.
Yep, correct.
Did you photograph that as well?
I did.
Yeah, so it's basically the hand watch for people
the hand
who
watch, that's right.
are not familiar. And apparently the origin story for it, I did my research today. But
please educate me. I didn't.
Yeah, apparently Francis Ford Coppola is a filmmaker that inspired the watch when he asked Journe whether any watchmaker had tried to represent time on 5 fingers of a hand, which is apparently how it was done in like the ancient periods of time. So apparently he was very inspired by this and released a very expensive watch in return. But yeah.
Okay, wait, I got a question. To see how well you've done your research, can you do the sign for?
No, of course not. Of course not. I just saw, I think, from Journe's own website, and I copy-pasted that into this. And then, because I think many people, I mean, even before this, I didn't know. But pretty cool. To me, I think Journe, we probably discussed this off camera before, but Journe is not something you buy for the finishing. It's more something that you buy. I think wearability is one, but also the complications that he does tend to be, assuming that they work properly, tend to be more unique. So personally for me, this is just like super cool. Very expensive though.
Yeah, no, I think it's one of the, it's like you look at it and you're like, wait, how how do you do that kind of moment. Yeah, so that's a good choice. Number 3 is actually a watch you mentioned earlier, but I'm putting it in. The Christopher Ward 12 Titanium.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I put it in. I think that it's... the sports watch trend has been a trend for a long time. But I don't really think there was a watch that came into like mainstream consciousness because it was affordable, but it had like the complete package. PRX was one, definitely, yes. But I think the 12, and specifically the titanium one, because it's lighter, it's thinner as well than the regular one.
Is the color different from steel?
Slightly different.
Okay, not like super dark.
No, not super dark.
Okay.
So I think, when you... Yes, you mentioned this, the design is inspired by some other brands. But, to me, it's like there are so many other things that's inspired by different people. Yes, this one is slightly more closer aligned, but I'm just looking at it, evaluating on its own. I think the wearability of the watch is amazing. The fact that they have both 40 and 36 for different people's wrist sizes, I think that's great. The movement is not like super fantastic.
It's the price point.
It works, yeah, but for the price point, you don't really buy it for the movement. It doesn't matter. And I think it's so thin. It's one of those watches that's like, it makes you wonder why something like the Vacheron overseas can't be thinner, right? It's like, come on, you're paying, I don't know, like 20 times the price or like whatnot for overseas. Why can't the thing be thinner? Why is it? Yes, they may launch a slightly thinner one, but it's still not quite near where the 12 is and how the 12 wears. So to me, wearability for integrated bracelet sports watch is quite high up.
I mean, trying yours on, I would say so I have a bigger wrist. I think it's a 40mm that wears, again, I think a lot smaller, maybe closer to like 38, 39-ish. Like probably too small for my wrist. I imagine if they did a 42, it would be like perfect for me. But again, like you said, I think package-wise, amazing. I think what I want to ask you though, as almost like Singapore's like de facto Tissot ambassador or the ambassador of the PRX, how do you even compare the two though?
For me, it's about case design. I think that's the main differentiating factor. And I think the 12 is just more elegant. The case, when I look at the PRX, it feels like the mid case is like this particular shape, this angular shape, and then you just slap on a round bezel on it and the dial. But with the 12, it feels a bit more like a cohesive package. Like the way it all comes together, there's very little excess mid case in that sense when you look at it from the front.
Yeah.
So I think that's the main differentiating factor. Of course, you have smaller details like the dial texture, the color of the date wheel is slightly different. But I think on the whole, the case design is probably the main difference. The other part that I really like about the 12 is that as a strap maker, the quick release, it's a quick release system, so it has knobs at the back.
Oh.
So you don't need any tools to remove the thing, and it's not a proprietary system.
Yeah, I thought you needed a tool for it.
Yeah, so it's not proprietary, and they actually put the quick release bars into the case itself. So for the PRX, it's actually into the bracelet, but for the 12, it's in the middle of the case.
Okay, so you detach the whole thing essentially.
You release it and then the entire bracelet falls out. So the bracelet is like the female end. Yeah, okay. Yeah, correct. So if we do make straps for it, it's much easier because I don't need to think about the quick release spring bar.
I mean, I guess to be fair, for people who want to buy straps for it as well, it's good that they have the option.
That's right.
Yeah. Wow, I'm surprised. Anyways, I guess your second or your number 2.
My number 2 is the Ming Lightweight 01.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Ming, I think, is one of those brands it's one of the few brands that's like young brands that are pushing the boundaries. And I think nothing says this more than trying to make the world's lightest watch.
It's very expensive, right?
Yeah, it's super expensive.
Do you know, is it 6 figures?
No. It's not 6 figures. It's like
5.
I want to say 30,000-ish.
Oh, okay. Not as expensive as I thought.
Yeah, not like extremely expensive, but it's still expensive for the amount of watch you're getting.
Oh, yeah, right? Which is very light.
Very light.
Your cost per gram
it's probably on par with like an RM.
Yeah, sure,
someone should do that calculation.
Yeah.
Maybe we should edit in somewhere in the video. But yeah, so if you're a new brand, you wouldn't focus on spending so much money on R&D to make the world's lightest watch. It's not something that... It's definitely not easy. I'm sure they've done like I don't know how many versions and spent a lot of time making this. So for them to put a flag in this place and say that I've occupied this space now, I think it's quite unique and interesting.
Yeah, because lightness is something that is not as common. I think recently thinness is
correct.
a big thing, which I'm not a big fan of. Like, I think overly thin, there is a level where it just becomes a bit ridiculous, like the Bulgari Octo, whatever QR code watch, which I thought was like, you can put the safe entry QR code during COVID time, which would have been hilarious. But, you know, stuff like that, I think it's like overkill, or like, of course, RM has one. But the concept of lightness is actually quite interesting. And I believe like visually there's like a story to be told, no? Like something about like how the design is.
Yeah, so I think the middle has this pulsating thing.
Yeah.
I still don't really know how it works, but it's just to make you know that this is not... I think because when it's so light, you question whether that's actually a watch or not, right? And you don't have a moving seconds hand, so you need something that really shows you that the watch is actually working.
Okay,
like it's a functional mechanical piece, so that pulsating middle star thing helps with that. But yeah, I think just to like do something like this requires a lot of balls, I think.
Would you buy one?
I didn't buy one. I think it's a cool concept, but
it's already sold out.
I think it's still available.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure. I know it wasn't sold out for like at least a week. I don't know if I'll buy one because I feel like when it's like a concept piece.
Yeah,
like I don't know if I want to fund a concept piece in a sense. But I'm sure the technology that they learn from it would trickle down into, I hope at least, trickle down into the other watches and whatnot.
Yeah, fair enough. I think my second one is a lot more boring, just a Patek minute repeater. But maybe I like it because it looks kind of Lumen-y, but I think much better than a Lumen. Yeah, I don't think I'll comment too much further, but it's basically a series of 4 random numbers, the 5316 in platinum, which is a perpetual calendar, minute repeater, tourbillon. I still think like when it comes to this sort of like level of complication, Patek has to be one of the best brands out there. Yeah, just not too much to say, but I think as far as, yeah, it's my favorite mainstream brand, and I think it's their best watch this year, unless in December they release something revolutionary, but probably unlikely. Yeah, I imagine you don't really have any thoughts about this.
I don't have thoughts on the watch, but do you think Patek is like definitely the leader in grand complication?
Wow, grand complication is hard because...
I mean like AP, you know.
How do you define grand complication in the first place? Because I know that there are people who are very strict and say like it must be at least 2 high complication. So something like a perpetual chronograph doesn't count because a chronograph is not. Yeah, but if you have like split second chronograph, maybe flyback or split second, then okay, it's fine. Yeah. But like, for example, like the Journe, like something like, I don't know if you've heard of the Astronomic, which is like their super complication watch. Like, does that count? I guess. And also VC obviously does like a lot of mega high end. Yeah, I guess this goes into the conversation of I've never really thought about it. But personally for me, in terms of like the watches I know or the world I know about, yeah, it would be up there. Honestly, jokes aside, I do think Lange makes very nice grand comp-esque stuff like the Datograph, Salmon, Perpetual, Tourbillon. Yeah, what a watch. Yeah, it's very tough. But for me, this is kind of one where I look at it and it's like, I would wear this if I could rewind time and buy Bitcoin. Yeah. But other than that, yeah.
Nice.
Don't really have too much more to say.
All right, shall we go to number 1?
Our number 1, I think, is the same anyways. Yeah. So this is Simon Brette, Chronometre Artisans. I guess we've only seen the subscription or the subscription, however you pronounce it, this year. But I believe he is making more editions.
Yeah.
I guess you would know better because I haven't really talked to him too much.
I mean, I think there's a reason why there was so much hype and people talking about it. It's not just because it's hype, I think. Not just because people who got one are trying to push it up, but
Actually, I don't think there was any of that, to be honest. It was more like it was actually a good watch.
yeah, I think it's just because of how visually striking it is.
Yeah.
Like I've seen videos of it, I've seen photos of it, but when I actually saw it in person, it's just one of those like wow moments. Because of the way he's finished the watch, it's not just the level of finishing, but I think the design, like the curvature of stuff, it really makes the entire movement. There's so much going on. I mean, I have a video. I can send it to you.
Yeah.
You can include this clip, but the way it reflects light is very different because of the curvature of like the screws and all that.
Oh, you're talking about movement. But also the dial.
Oh, the dial as well. Yeah, the dial. I mean, the subscription model has that hammered dial finish.
Yeah.
That is very visually striking.
I just think so I've never seen the watch in person, but I guess in a world that we currently are in, where I guess for a watch or an independent like this, social media is such a crucial avenue for something to gain traction. It's something that looks amazing in photos and videos. Like you see like photos that people take and it's like, oh wow, that looks cool. But beyond that, I also do think like he's very transparent with the people he's worked with
exactly.
for the project, and there are some very big names inside. So yeah.
I mean, and I think he is. It's like if you go back 20-something years. I mean, John started with a subscription.
Yes.
There's a few people that believed in him. It feels like we are going through that now with Simon Brette. I think it was at least 2 or 3 years when he first mooted the idea, left mb&f, and then decided to start his own brand. The story is that, I mean, from what I've heard, when he came out with this concept, not that many people believed that he could do something like this. At least what he was trying to push at the time. So there were people who offered but didn't take it up, right? Because there's a risk they are taking.
As a customer, I mean, I believe the subscription price was 50,000 Swiss francs, which is not a negligible amount, at least for me. So, or for most people, I guess. So yeah, definitely taking a risk on like a new name in a way.
Yeah, but I think I spoke to him at Dubai, and Simon is a very, very approachable person.
Yeah.
And he's very realistic about things as well. Like there's we spoke about like commitments, not just to work but to family as well. And those are like practical concerns that everyone faces, right? So even though he has seen a lot of success, but at the end of the day, this is still he's like a regular person.
Yeah, I had a friend who met him recently in Bali and just said like he's a super nice and humble person despite having won a GPHG award for his first watch.
First watch, yeah. Great.
Obviously 5 watches is very limited, but I didn't want to have like a complete discussion of 10. But of course, I think both of us have some notable mentions that didn't make it in. Yeah, do you want to just like start with one of them?
The Cartier Century 100th anniversary platinum.
Oh, I have no knowledge on this.
They did the 100th anniversary 2 years ago. So this one they're calling it 100th anniversary as well, which I feel like they shouldn't have.
It's like yellow gold.
So yellow gold is the one they did 2 years ago. This one is platinum. But why I put it in is because it's not just a different case material. I think it's even thinner. And the original platinum 100th anniversary is even thinner than the Privé version. So it's like they've gone from already thin to thinner 2 years ago to even thinner this time around.
Interesting.
So yeah, and of course the Century is a very classic design.
Yeah, I have not too much to comment on Cartier. I'm sure you would have a lot more to say about that brand for multiple reasons. But I guess the one I throw in, not because I own one, but because I thought it was interesting, was the HM11. And the reason is more because I think innovative one, but most importantly, from the photos I've seen, it seems to wear a lot smaller than the size suggests. So I'm not sure how they're doing the measurement. I remember on paper it's like, like a decent size, but on wrists or like different people taking photos, it looks pretty small. And I just think the idea of it is pretty cool. It's just one of those cases where I don't think, or the HM has never been my thing, but I have to applaud them for the innovation. I believe it can show you the temperature or something, which I'm not sure why you'd want to know.
Because it's a house. Don't you want to know the temperature of your house?
Yeah. I think people were joking like, oh, I need to sell my house to like get this watch. But I was like, fair enough. Like,
It's true though.
yeah, go for it. It's worth it.
Yeah.
But I thought to me that was one that I would pick, just like notable in a way. It was also very divisive. I think some people were just not a fan of it. But yeah, I'll go for another one like consecutively, and I'll put. Wow, which ones of these would you actually have something to say about? The JLC Reverso chronograph. I'm not sure what the full name is, but I just thought the concept of having a watch that is super plain on one side and a nice skeleton on the other side was very intriguing. And again, it's one that I don't know why I'm putting watches I'd never owned myself in my notable mentions, because I've tried reversos before and the shape just doesn't fit my wrist. But maybe I'm too fat or something. But like the rectangular shape is just weird for me. But I just thought the concept of it is very cool, and the execution of the skeleton is nice.
Yeah, I think that's super, like, it catches people's attention when you see photos of it. But it's quite a big watch, right?
Yeah, I
I
believe.
think it's the larger reversal
I
case.
think someone posted like an NWA of it recently, and it's like extending across his whole wrist. I was like, that doesn't look particularly great. But I think the concept of it is great. And I know many people getting one, so
Oh, that's good, yeah.
good for them.
I'll just add one more and I'll throw in my DB Starry Seas, DB28 XN Starry
This is
Seas.
so biased. You're just putting your own watches.
That's the reason why I get it, right?
No, for sure.
But I think it's bringing DB to a different crowd with a smaller size.
Yeah.
Like I mean, yes, you have the 25s that are slightly smaller, 40 but this is thin and small, and I think it would make DB appeal to a bigger crowd, especially as you start to size down or preferences going for smaller sizes.
I'll put in another independence because beyond this, my last two notable mentions are things you have nothing to say about. So
Thank you for
the
accommodating.
Grubo Force double balancier in a smaller case this time. To me, Grubo is always something where if I have, well, how much is one? Maybe with discount like 300-400 casing, somewhere in that range.
Is that discount?
Yeah, you can.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Depends where from. But anyways, if I had like that amount of money to flush down a drain, like I would buy a Grubo Force without like second thought. I think like the curvature of the pieces is insane. Like it's so three-dimensional. I love having like balanced wheels on the front. Design wise, just super cool. It's kind of like a RME, maybe not feel, but like same category, but just really fine finishing. And yeah, I guess, do you have any thoughts about Grubo?
Similarly, I think it's one of those that's like super high-end finishing and a brand that like I look at but I never really consider because the price point is very high.
Also historically very big.
Yes, correct. Historically very big. I'm glad to see the trend towards smaller watches that they're making. But I think to me, the problem with Grubo is that the design is not very cohesive. Like it's like just things all over the place. You know, there's the signature and there's the handmade version. But yes, if you know about the movement finishing, it's great. But if you don't know, then you're like, what am I looking at? So that's why it never really appealed to me that strongly.
Yeah, I think the two last ones I'll lump together because they're mainstream brands. One is the Vacheron traditional tourbillon retrograde day date, which is
You did a video on it,
probably the longest watch name that we've had today. I did a video on it. I do think it is a very nice watch. Not too much more to say about it. I really like the traditional. I like their highly polished cases. I really like VC's tourbillons.
The tourbillon, yes.
The cages are done well.
Yep.
You've also photographed a few before. Movement is kind of meh. It's probably like my main downside with a watch that price, but it is a mainstream brand at the end of the day. It's not like super fine finishing, but it looks okay. That is one. And the last one I'll throw in because people think I hate this brand, which I actually don't really. It's the the AP only watch. So they did a white ceramic, royal oak with a flying tourbillon in
The
blue.
one that was pulled out.
Yeah, I think it was the first one to be pulled out.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why I'm putting it in, but putting it back in. But yeah, I think it looks really amazing. I love white watches, as exemplified by like me putting white straps on like everything I own. Just a cool watch for me. But yeah, any more notable mentions? For you?
I've one last one. Philip Murray.
Oh God.
Not okay. So not the. They are releasing a chronograph. I don't know exactly what it'll look like. I mean, I've seen one version of it. I think there are multiple. And of course, they have the circular perpetual calendar for the only watch one. But I think why I put that in is because I feel like I spoke. So 1 year ago, I met Andre at Singapore Watch Fair. I spoke to him, and he was telling me that their vision is to have 3 lines. Like you have the quartz line, the mecha quartz line, you have the mechanical line, you have the complications line. And now to see it coming together somewhat, it's like that's what I find cool. Like when brands communicate something like this is what we want to do, and you actually do it, I think that makes it impressive. And of course, it's 1 year. Maybe they already had the plans for that, but it shows you that they can not just have ideas but actually execute on them. And I mean, I think the price point of their watch is going to be it's like the Christopher Ward, right, that we talked about earlier. I think bringing down a lot of the things that were traditionally at a much higher price point and bringing it to a lower tier, things that's more accessible. So yeah.
No, awesome. I guess I'll ask one final question, which I might edit out in the end because it's probably more controversial. But do you feel like any watches this year which have not been so good released? I'll just do mine because I thought it was very funny at the time. But I remember when it first came out, I was really not a fan of the Odysseus chronograph just because I think it was their only release for Watches and Wonders. And I thought to have your own release being something that you probably have to bundle for, just kind of, it felt a bit off, especially when you had brands like Patek doing a load of stuff, Vacheron was doing a lot of stuff, like everyone was releasing a lot, and then there's Lange with one bundle only piece. That for me was, I don't know how to feel about that. Maybe the watch itself is great. I don't think I'm allowed back in the Lange boutique, so I just...
You'll never try it.
I'll never try it.
But now that you mention it, there's one release that felt a little bit odd to me. I think that's the Chopard Antarctic, the titanium version.
Was it the Rattrapant or what did they do this year?
No, the basic version, the time only in the titanium case. So it's odd because they were very explicit that it will only be delivered like next year onwards. But they released it at Watches and Wonders this year.
Okay.
So to me, it's like if you know it's going to be a next year thing,
why not release it next year?
Just release it next year because you don't have the production timeline to make something anyway. It's like there's something new, then just don't release anything, right? Just save it for next year rather than you release something now. You hope people will take orders for it for like a 2/4 delivery. That just felt it's a bit odd to me.
This recording was actually a lot longer than expected, so I've cut out a lot of content. Nonetheless, I hope you enjoyed the video. A massive thanks to Ken for coming on. You can check out Delugs either on Instagram or their website. If you like this video, please consider liking and subscribing. Thank you for watching.